The great war room of the Zephyrian Empire buzzed with activity. Tall reptilian beings moved around holographic displays that showed star maps stretching across the galaxy. Their scales gleamed under the bright lights, and their yellow eyes glowed with confidence. They had ruled over 300 star systems for thousands of years, and no enemy had ever defeated them. Admiral Kekstar stood at the center of the room, his massive form casting a shadow over the smaller officers around him. He was the most feared military leader in the Empire, responsible for conquering dozens of worlds. His claws clicked against the metal table as he studied the latest intelligence reports. "What do we know about this planet called Earth?" Kekstar asked, his voice deep and commanding. Commander Veltok, his second-in-command, activated a hologram showing a small blue planet. "It orbits a yellow star in the outer rim of this galaxy, sir. The species there calls themselves humans. They are a young race that only discovered space travel 50 years ago." Kekstar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the room. 50 years? We have been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. What weapons do they possess? Primitive kinetic projectiles, sir. Metal bullets fired from chemical explosives. Their largest warships are barely the size of our patrol boats. They have no energy shields and no plasma weapons. Their fastest ships can barely reach half the speed of light. The other officers in the room joined their admiral in laughter. General Zarkith, a veteran of 20 conquest campaigns, shook his head in disbelief. "Are you telling us that these humans still use metal bullets? Do they throw rocks as well?" "From what our scouts report, yes, sir. They also use explosive missiles with metal fragments." "Very crude technology," Veltok replied. Kekstar studied the display more carefully. The human ships looked like crude metal boxes with engines attached. Their weapons were simple tubes that fired solid projectiles. Compared to the sleek Zephyrian vessels with their energy weapons and psychic communication networks, the human fleet looked like toys. "How many ships do they have?" Kekstar asked. "Our intelligence suggests they have approximately 200 combat vessels across their entire space. Most are small fighters or patrol ships. They have perhaps 20 large warships that they call cruisers or battleships. 200 ships," Kekstar mused. "We have over 3,000 vessels in our invasion fleet alone. This will not even qualify as a proper battle." Far across the galaxy, on a space station orbiting Earth, General Ryan Murphy sat in his office reading the same intelligence reports that the Zephyrians possessed about humanity. But Murphy was reading about the alien empire that was planning to invade his home. Murphy was a career military officer who had spent 30 years defending Earth from various threats. He had fought space pirates, rebellious colonies, and hostile alien creatures, but nothing had prepared him for this. The Zephyrian Empire was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. The reports made grim reading. The Zephyrians had conquered every species they had encountered. Their plasma weapons could melt through the strongest human armor in seconds. Their ships moved faster than anything in the human fleet. Worst of all, their commanders could communicate instantly across vast distances using some kind of mental link. Murphy's aide, Lieutenant Amy Foster, entered the office with more bad news. "Sir, our deep space monitors have detected massive energy signatures at the edge of our solar system. The Zephyrian fleet has arrived." Murphy nodded grimly. He had expected this moment for months, ever since Earth's scouts had first encountered Zephyrian probe ships. "How many ships, Lieutenant?" "Our computers are still counting, sir, but initial estimates suggest over 2,000 vessels. The largest ones are bigger than anything we've ever built." Murphy stood up and walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, with white clouds swirling over green continents and blue oceans. Billions of people lived down there, unaware that their entire civilization was about to face its greatest test. "Sir," Foster continued. "We're receiving a transmission from the alien fleet. They're demanding our immediate surrender." Murphy turned back to his aide. "Put it on the main screen." The holographic display activated, showing the imposing figure of Admiral Kextar. The alien leader's yellow eyes gleamed with arrogance as he delivered his message. "Humans of Earth, I am Admiral Kextar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. Your primitive civilization has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 1 solar day to surrender unconditionally. Your weapons are useless against our technology. Your ships are inferior to our patrol boats. Resistance will only result in unnecessary destruction." The transmission ended, leaving Murphy alone with his thoughts. He knew that Kextar was right about human technology being inferior. The aliens had energy weapons that could destroy human ships with a single shot. They had faster ships, better armor, and thousands of years of combat experience. But Murphy also knew something that Kextar did not understand about humans. Humanity had never won a war through superior technology. They won through determination, creativity, and the refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. The aliens might have better weapons, but they had never fought an enemy like humanity. Murphy activated his communication system and sent a message to President Lisa Carter on Earth. Within an hour, he received her response. It was simple and direct. "Tell them to come and take it." Murphy smiled for the first time in days. He opened a channel to the Zephyrian fleet and transmitted the president's message. Across space, Admiral Kextar received the human response. With confusion and anger. No species had ever refused his demands before. The war between humans and Zephyrians was about to begin, and neither side fully understood what they were getting into. Admiral Kextar could not believe what he had just heard. In over 300 conquests, no species had ever refused his surrender demand. The human response of, "Come and take it," echoed in his mind like an insult that burned through his pride. "Prepare the advance fleet," Kextar ordered his officers. "We will show these humans what happens when they defy the Zephyrian Empire. Send 100 ships to their outer planets. We will crush their resistance quickly and move on to their home world." Commander Veltok hesitated. "Sir, perhaps we should send the full fleet. The humans might have hidden defenses we do not know about." Kextar's eyes flashed with anger. 100 ships against 200 primitive vessels? We could defeat them with 10 ships if needed. These humans use metal bullets, Veltok. Metal bullets against plasma cannons. This will be over in hours. The Zephyrian advance fleet moved through space like a pack of deadly predators. Their ships glowed with energy shields that could stop any human weapon. Plasma cannons charged with enough power to melt asteroids. The formation was perfect, tested in 1,000 battles against countless enemies. Near Jupiter's moon, Europa, Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defender, humanity's largest warship. Around him, 30 other human ships waited. In the shadow of the gas giant, the ships looked small and crude compared to the approaching alien fleet, but they carried the hopes of an entire species. "Enemy contact," reported Lieutenant Ben Adams from the sensor station. 100 alien vessels approaching from the outer system. They're moving in standard attack formation. Harrison nodded. He had studied every piece of intelligence about Zephyrian tactics. They always used the same formations, the same strategies. It had worked for them for thousands of years, so they never changed. That would be their first mistake. "Signal all ships," Harrison ordered. "Execute Plan Delta. Sarah, are your fighters ready?" Captain Sarah Blake's voice crackled over the radio from her fighter squadron. "Ready and waiting, Jake. My pilots know what to do." The human plan was simple but dangerous. Instead of meeting the aliens in open space, where their superior weapons would dominate, the humans would use Jupiter's radiation and the asteroid belt as cover. They would force the Zephyrians to fight in close quarters, where human agility and creativity could make up for their weaker weapons. The battle began when the Zephyrian fleet reached the edge of Jupiter's orbit. Their plasma cannons fired first, sending bolts of superheated energy across space. The beams struck where the human ships had been moments before, but Harrison had already ordered his fleet to scatter. All ships evasive maneuvers, Harrison commanded. Use the asteroids for cover. Hit and run tactics only. The human ships broke formation and dove into the asteroid field like fish swimming through coral. The Zephyrians tried to follow, but their large ships struggled to maneuver between the floating rocks. Their perfect formation began to break apart as they tried to track the smaller human vessels. Captain Blake led her fighter squadron in a desperate attack. Her small ships dove toward Jupiter's atmosphere, using the planet's gravity to slingshot around and attack the alien fleet from behind. The Zephyrian commanders, linked by their psychic network, had never faced such chaotic tactics. "What are they doing?" Commander Veltok demanded as he watched the human fighters disappear into Jupiter's storms. No ship can survive in that radiation field. But the human fighters emerged from the gas giant's upper atmosphere like ghosts, their hulls glowing from radiation exposure. Blake's squadron fired their missiles at point-blank range into the rear of the Zephyrian formation. 3 alien ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Zephyrians tried to respond with their superior firepower, but the humans refused to stay still long enough to be targeted. Captain Harrison ordered his ships to coordinate their attacks, with groups of human vessels focusing fire on single alien targets before disappearing back into the asteroid field. Colonel Ben Adams led a boarding party in a desperate assault on a damaged Zephyrian cruiser. His Marines used magnetic boots to walk across the hull of their ship and leap onto the alien vessel while both ships were still moving. The Zephyrians had never encountered such reckless tactics. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships darted between asteroids like angry wasps, striking at the alien fleet and vanishing before the Zephyrians could respond. The aliens lost ship after ship to coordinated missile attacks and ramming maneuvers that their commanders could not predict. Admiral Kekstar watched the battle from his flagship with growing disbelief. His advance fleet was being torn apart by primitive human tactics. The psychic link that connected his commanders was overloaded with confusion and panic. Ships were breaking formation and firing at shadows. "Retreat," Kekstar finally ordered. "Pull back to the outer system." The surviving Zephyrian ships fled toward the edge of the solar system, leaving behind the wreckage of 37 vessels. The humans had lost 16 ships, but they had proven something important. The mighty Zephyrian Empire could be hurt. Captain Harrison stood on his bridge, watching the alien fleet retreat. Around him, his crew cheered, but Harrison knew this was only the beginning. The Zephyrians would return with more ships and better plans. But humanity had bought itself time and something even more valuable than weapons. They had bought themselves hope. Colonel Adams returned from his boarding mission with captured Zephyrian technology. Dr. Amy Foster, now promoted to chief engineer, began studying the alien systems immediately. If humans could understand how Zephyrian weapons worked, they might find weaknesses to exploit. The first battle was over, but the war for Earth's survival had just begun. 3 months passed after the first battle at Jupiter. Dr. Amy Foster worked day and night in her laboratory, studying the Zephyrian technology that Colonel Adams had captured. The alien equipment was far more advanced than anything humans had ever built, but it also had weaknesses that Foster was beginning to understand. The energy shields work by creating a field that deflects plasma and energy weapons, Foster explained to General Murphy during their weekly briefing. But they're designed to stop energy attacks, not solid projectiles moving at high speed. Murphy leaned forward with interest. "You mean our kinetic weapons can penetrate their shields?" "Not exactly. The shields can stop our current missiles, but I think I can modify them. If we add rotating tips and increase their velocity, we might be able to punch through the energy field before it can deflect the projectile. While Foster worked on new weapons, Commander Tony Wells led a team developing better armor for human ships. The captured Zephyrian hull materials were incredibly strong, but they required rare elements that Earth did not have in large quantities. "We can't build ships like theirs," Wells reported, "but we can add layers of their armor to our existing vessels. It won't make us as strong as them, but it will help us survive their plasma fire long enough to get close." Admiral Kekstar was also making preparations. The defeat at Jupiter had been a shock to the entire Zephyrian Empire. No enemy had ever destroyed so many Imperial ships in a single battle. The High Command demanded explanations and results. "The humans fight like wild animals," Kekstar told the Imperial Council. "They have no honor, no formation discipline. They attack from hiding and run away like cowards. But they are still primitive. We just need to adjust our tactics." The Council was not satisfied with excuses. Grand Admiral Lortek, the supreme leader of all Zephyrian forces, gave Kekstar a direct order. "You will break their spirit by attacking their civilian populations. Target their colonies and space stations. When they see their families dying, they will surrender." Kekstar obeyed his orders, but the decision would prove to be the worst mistake of his military career. The Zephyrian fleet began attacking human civilian targets, starting with the mining colony on New Shanghai in the Alpha Centauri system. The attack was devastating. Plasma bombardment from orbit destroyed schools, hospitals, and residential areas. 15,000 civilians died in the first hour. The images of the destruction spread across human space within days, transmitted by emergency beacons before. The colony fell silent. Captain Sarah Blake was on leave visiting her family on Earth when she saw the news reports. The footage showed children's toys scattered among the ruins of what had been a peaceful settlement. Blake had fought in the Jupiter battle, but seeing innocent families murdered filled her with a rage she had never felt before. "They want to fight civilians?" Blake said to her squadron mates. "Then they just made this personal." The attack on New Shanghai changed everything. What had been a defensive war to protect Earth became something much more intense. Every human in space wanted revenge against the aliens who had murdered defenseless families. Admiral Kate Johnson took command of the rebuilt Earth Defense Fleet. Johnson was a veteran of the Jupiter battle and understood how to fight the Zephyrians. But now she had resources that General Murphy could only dream of 3 months earlier. "We have 40 new ships equipped with hybrid technology," Johnson announced to her fleet commanders. "Dr. Foster's new missiles can penetrate Zephyrian shields. And Commander Wells has upgraded our armor. We're still outnumbered, but we're no longer outgunned." The turning point came during the Battle of Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Admiral Kekstar brought his main fleet of 800 ships to crush the human resistance once and for all. He expected to find the humans hiding behind the moon, using their usual cowardly tactics. Instead, the human fleet waited in open space, formed up in traditional battle lines like civilized warriors. Kekstar was pleased to see that the humans had finally learned proper military behavior. "At last," Kekstar told his officers, "they will fight with honor. This will be a quick victory." The Zephyrian fleet advanced in perfect formation, their plasma cannons charging for the killing blow. But as they approached the human battle line, Admiral Johnson activated hidden bases throughout Saturn's ring system. Thousands of missiles launched from concealed platforms among the ice and rock of Saturn's rings. The projectiles were Foster's new design, with rotating diamond tips that could drill through energy shields. They struck the Zephyrian formation from 6 different directions at once. "Impossible," Kekstar gasped as his ships began exploding. Around him, where did those missiles come from? The human battle lines suddenly broke apart and attacked. But these were not the crude ships that had fought at Jupiter. The new human vessels had hybrid armor that could survive plasma hits, and their weapons could punch through Zephyrian shields. Commander Rick Davis led a boarding assault on the Zephyrian command ship. His Marines fought through alien corridors, using close combat skills that the Zephyrians had never developed. The reptilian warriors were deadly with their plasma rifles, but they panicked when humans got close enough to use knives and bare hands. Davis reached the ship's neural relay center, the heart of the Zephyrian psychic communication network. His team planted explosive charges that severed the mental link connecting the alien fleet. Without their psychic coordination, the Zephyrian ships began fighting as individuals instead of a unified force. The battle became a massacre. Human wolf. Packs attacked isolated alien ships, while the Zephyrian formation collapsed into chaos. Admiral Kekstar watched in horror as half his fleet was destroyed in less than 4 hours. For the first time in his long military career, Kekstar ordered a full retreat. The Zephyrian Empire, which had never lost a major battle, fled from human space in defeat. The defeat at Titan sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Kekstar retreated to the edge of human space with less than half his original fleet. The survivors were demoralized and confused. Many had never experienced defeat before, and they struggled to understand how primitive humans had beaten their advanced technology without their psychic communication network. The Zephyrian ships fought like lost children. Captains who had relied on mental links for coordination now had to use crude radio signals like the humans they despised. The change was devastating to their combat effectiveness. Captain Steve Miller saw the opportunity and seized it. He commanded a group of 12 fast human ships that hunted Zephyrian vessels like wolves hunting deer. Miller's tactics were simple but effective. Find isolated alien ships and attack them with overwhelming numbers before they could call for help. Remember, Miller told his captains, they can't coordinate anymore. Each ship is fighting alone. We hit them fast and hard, then disappear before their friends arrive. Miller's wolf pack destroyed 15 Zephyrian ships in 2 weeks. Other human commanders copied his tactics, and soon dozens of small human fleets were hunting alien stragglers throughout the outer solar system. Dr. Amy Foster made another breakthrough in her research laboratory. She had been studying the quantum networks that connected Zephyrian ships and discovered something remarkable. The aliens used quantum entanglement to link their entire fleet, but the system had a critical weakness. If we can introduce a virus into their network, Foster explained to General Murphy, it will spread to every connected ship. We could disable their entire fleet with a single attack. Lieutenant Helen Price, a former computer programmer who had joined the military after New Shanghai, worked with Foster to develop the virus. Price understood both human and alien computer systems, making her the perfect person for the job. The virus won't just disrupt their communications, Price explained. It will cause feedback loops in their weapon systems. Their own technology will turn against them. The mission to deploy the virus fell to Commander Alex Turner and his stealth ship crew. Turner was a specialist in dangerous missions, and his ship was equipped with the most advanced human cloaking technology available. Turner's team approached the Zephyrian Mobile Command, base during the night cycle when alien sensors were less active. The base was a massive structure that served as Admiral Kekstar's headquarters and the central hub for the remaining psychic network. Getting inside required Turner and his Marines to spacewalk across 2 kilometers of open space while avoiding alien patrol ships. They used magnetic grapples and thruster packs to move silently through the darkness, their suits painted black to avoid detection. The infiltration was nearly perfect until Sergeant Paul Grant accidentally triggered an alarm. while cutting through an exterior hatch. Suddenly, the entire base was on alert, and Zephyrian warriors began searching for intruders. "Move fast," Turner ordered his team. "We have maybe 10 minutes before they find us." The Marines fought their way through alien corridors using close quarters, combat tactics that the Zephyrians could not match. The reptilian warriors were dangerous with their energy weapons, but they had never trained for hand-to-hand fighting in narrow spaces. Turner reached the central computer core just as a squad of alien guards arrived. While his Marines held them off, Turner connected Lieutenant Price's virus transmitter to the quantum network hub. The device was small, no bigger than a human fist, but it carried the power to cripple the entire Zephyrian fleet. The virus activated immediately, spreading through the quantum network faster than the speed of light. On ships throughout the Zephyrian fleet, computer systems began failing in cascade failures. Weapon systems overloaded, life support flickered, and navigation computers displayed random coordinates. Admiral Kekstar was in his command center when the virus struck. His flagship shuddered as power fluctuations swept through every system. Emergency lights flashed as the main computers crashed one by one. "What is happening?" Kekstar demanded, but his officers had no answers. Their instruments were showing impossible readings, and half the ship's systems were offline. On the bridge of the UES Defender, Admiral Johnson watched the Zephyrian fleet tear itself apart. Alien ships fired randomly at each other as their targeting. Systems malfunctioned. Some vessels spun out of control when their navigation computers failed. Others simply went dark as their power systems collapsed. "All ships advance on the enemy fleet," Johnson ordered. "This is our chance to end this war." The human fleet moved forward to engage the crippled Zephyrian vessels. What followed was less a battle than a cleanup operation. Human ships systematically destroyed alien vessels that could no longer defend themselves properly. Captain Sarah Blake led her squadron against Kekstar's flagship. The massive Zephyrian dreadnought was still dangerous, but its weapons kept misfiring due to the virus. Blake's fighters darted around the larger ship like angry hornets, striking at weak points with their improved missiles. Commander Rick Davis coordinated the final assault on the alien command ship. His boarding teams used the same tactics that had worked at Titan, fighting through damaged corridors to reach critical systems. The Zephyrian defenders fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and confused. When Davis reached the main bridge, he found Admiral Kekstar standing alone among his dead officers. The alien commander looked defeated, his yellow eyes dim with exhaustion and shame. "Your species fights without honor," Kekstar said in broken human language. "You use tricks and deception instead of facing us directly." Davis removed his helmet and looked the alien admiral in the eye. "We fight to survive. You came to our home to conquer and kill us. What did you expect?" The Zephyrian fleet was finished. Those ships that could still move began retreating toward their own territory, leaving behind hundreds of wrecked vessels and thousands of dead warriors. The invasion of Earth had become a complete disaster for the once mighty empire. 6 months after the virus attack, the war between humans and Zephyrians reached its final stage. The alien empire was in chaos. Their once mighty fleet was scattered across the galaxy, and many of their subject worlds had begun to rebel. The news of human victory had spread to every corner of known space, inspiring countless oppressed species to rise up against their Zephyrian masters. Admiral Kekstar made his last stand in the Proxima Centauri system, where he had gathered the remaining loyal ships of his fleet. Only 300 vessels remained from the original invasion force of 2,000. Many were damaged and running on emergency power, but Kekstar refused to surrender. Admiral Kate Johnson approached with a combined human fleet of 800 ships. The humans now had the advantage in both numbers and technology. Their vessels carried the best of both human and Zephyrian engineering, creating a hybrid fleet that was stronger than either species could build alone. Admiral Kextar Johnson. Broadcast to the alien fleet. Your empire is finished. Your own worlds are in rebellion. Surrender now, and we will treat your people with mercy. Kextar's response came back filled with rage and desperation. I am a warrior of the Zephyrian Empire. I have conquered 50 worlds in the name of my people. I will not surrender to primitive creatures who fight without honor. The alien admiral made a challenge that surprised everyone. I demand single combat between our flagships. If you defeat me, my remaining ships will surrender. If I win, you will allow us to retreat to our home territory. Admiral Johnson considered the offer. A single battle would save thousands of lives. On both sides. She looked around her bridge at the crew who had fought beside her for over a year. They had come so far from the desperate defenders who had barely survived the first battle at Jupiter. Very well, Johnson replied. Single combat between flagships. Winner takes all. The two fleets separated to create a fighting space in the center of the system. Kextar's flagship was a massive dreadnought called the Eternal Conqueror, built for the personal use of Zephyrian admirals. It was 3 times larger than any human ship and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Johnson's flagship was the U.E.'s Retribution, a vessel built specifically to fight Zephyrians. It combined the best human engineering with captured alien technology, creating something entirely new. The ship was smaller than the Eternal Conqueror, but faster and more maneuverable. The duel began at dawn, with both ships approaching each other across the empty space between the fleets. Kextar fired first, sending massive plasma bolts that could vaporize any ship from the early days of the war. But the Retribution's hybrid shields held, absorbing the energy and redirecting it harmlessly into space. Johnson responded with kinetic projectiles fired from railguns that Dr. Foster had designed. The solid metal slugs moved at incredible speed, punching through the alien ship's energy shields and striking its armored hull. Sparks flew as the projectiles carved deep grooves in the Zephyrian armor. The two ships circled each other like ancient warriors, trading devastating blows. Kextar's superior firepower began to tell as the human ship's shields weakened under the constant plasma bombardment. But Johnson had learned from a year of fighting Zephyrians, and she knew their weaknesses. All power to engines, Johnson ordered. Take us in close. The Retribution accelerated directly toward the Eternal Conqueror, diving through the alien ship's plasma fire like a fighter pilot in atmosphere. The maneuver was incredibly dangerous, but it brought the human ship within range of its most powerful weapons. Captain Sarah Blake, now commanding her own ship, led a fighter squadron in support of the flagship duel. Her pilots had orders to stay out of the main fight, but Blake saw an opportunity when the Eternal Conqueror's shield generators overloaded from the intense battle. All fighters, follow me, Blake commanded. Target the shield generators on the alien ship's port side. Blake's squadron dove through the crossfire between the two flagships, their small ships weaving between plasma bolts and kinetic projectiles. It was the most dangerous flying any of them had ever attempted, but they reached their target and fired their missiles at point-blank range. The Eternal Conqueror's port shields collapsed, leaving that section of the ship vulnerable. Admiral Johnson saw the opening and fired everything she had at the exposed area. Railgun slugs, explosive missiles, and energy beams all struck the same point on the alien ship's hull. The damage was catastrophic. The Eternal Conqueror's hull cracked, open, venting atmosphere and debris into space. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship as damaged systems overloaded. Admiral Kextar's flagship began to list to one side, its engines failing. But Kextar was not finished. With his last functioning weapons, he fired a final plasma salvo at the Retribution. The beam struck the human ship's bridge, killing half the crew and severely damaging the command center. Admiral Johnson was wounded, but still conscious. She dragged herself to the weapons console and fired the Retribution's last missile. The projectile struck the Eternal Conqueror's reactor core, and the massive alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The battle was over. The remaining Zephyrian ships, true to their admiral's word, surrendered to the human fleet. The war that had begun with humanity fighting for survival had ended with complete victory, but the aftermath brought unexpected changes. The Zephyrian Empire collapsed as subject worlds declared independence. Many former alien colonies asked for human protection, having heard stories of human fairness and honor. General Murphy, now promoted to head of the new Terran Defense League, found himself protecting the same species that had once served the Empire. The greatest surprise came when former Admiral Kextar, rescued from his destroyed flagship, requested to serve in the human fleet. He had been captured, treated with dignity, and had come to respect human military skills. "You fight with honor after all," Kextar told General Murphy during their first meeting. "I was wrong about your species. You are not primitive. You are warriors of the highest order." Commander Rick Davis, now a general himself, stood on the bridge of the exploration ship New Horizon 5 years after the war's end. The galaxy was a different place now. Dozens of former Zephyrian worlds had joined the human alliance, and the principles of freedom and self-determination were spreading throughout. Known Space. Davis reflected on the lessons of the war. Humanity had not won through superior technology or overwhelming force. They had won because they refused to give up, because they adapted to every challenge, and because they treated even their enemies with dignity after victory. The war had taught the galaxy that underestimating human determination was a mistake no species could afford to make twice. And in the end, humanity had not just survived, but had become the protectors of peace and freedom among the stars.